Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video day. And today we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans potentially trading for Deebo Samuel. Today was reported by Jordan Schultz that the Texans and the Commanders have talked to the 49ers about potentially trading for Deebo Samuel. And this is, solid report by Jordan Schultz. We've heard some other reports about him this week. How about that? Yeah, that was crazy earlier this week. So, but I'd love to see this Houston Texans team bring in Deebo Samuel, mainly because of his past with D'Amico Ryans. Obviously, D'Amico was the defensive coordinator and Deebo Samuel was on the team, but they were on the same roster, and so that I think it'd be a solid addition. I know a lot of fans didn't like this play, one of the big play calls that the Texans did last year, but one of the things that the Texans did a lot last year that was Bobby Sloak overused, and I know Bobby Sloak's gone, but one of the things that Bobby Sloak overused last year, and it was not successful at all, was Bobby Sloak just spamming on, screen passes. We saw that, we saw 4 failed screen passes in the Kansas City Chiefs Week 16 game, the regular season game, and they kept throwing it to Robert Woods. Why are you throwing screen passes to a veteran wide receiver against one of the best defenses in football? But Deebo Samuel is one of those guys that you can throw screen passes to, and he's very successful when you get him involved in the screen pass game with his speed. So after flashbacks of how terrible the Houston Texans screen pass game was last season, I don't know if I want to see that again. But I know with Deebo Samuel, you can really make that effective. We're going to be honest. Deebo Samuel had a terrible year last year. He did miss 2 games, but played 15 games, 15 starts, had 51 receptions, 670 receiving yards, with only 3 receiving touchdowns. Last year, played the same amount of games, 15 starts, and he had over 800 receiving yards, and he had 7 receiving touchdowns. But you hope if he were to be teamed up with C.J. Stroud, he gets it back. He gets what he had years ago back. 2021, he had 1,400 receiving yards with the 49ers, had 6 receiving touchdowns. I just think it's probably hard for him at times. Like last season, Brandon Ayuk goes down. You're being more focused on, and I think it's a lot easier to play at wide receiver when you got Brandon Ayuk on the field with you, and there's a lot of focus on him as well as you. But when Brandon Ayuk goes off that field and he's no longer available, like we saw with his torn ACL this season, that makes it hard to make plays because the defense is going to be more attentioned on you. And if you join the Houston Texans, it's going to be very similar, if not even better, with Nico Collins. Nico Collins gets a lot of attention, and that would be interesting. You would think if Deebo Samuel joins the Houston Texans, if he reunites with D'Amico Ryans, the Texans would be saying goodbye to Stephon Diggs for starters, and not only that, but rumors of Cooper Kupp would probably be over. Honestly, I don't know. I think Diggs is still a possibility for the Texans, even if Deebo Samuel would be traded for. The only reason I say that is because, last year, the Texans had an elite wide receiver trio. They were okay with having almost basically 3 number ones next to each other, and Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs. So why not have it again where it's Collins, Samuel, and Diggs? You can have Diggs and Collins do what they do what they did last year, and you add in to the mix with those guys Deebo Samuel. He's a speed guy. You can use him with the screen pass game. I think it's unlikely that if you trade for Samuel that Diggs comes back, but it would be interesting. It really would. And I think maybe possibly Samuel, Diggs, and Collins would be possibly more interesting to watch than Dell, Diggs, and Collins. But I honestly I don't think you trade for Samuel and re-sign Diggs. I think your wide receiver 2 options to pair next to Nico Collins or trade. Your 3 top options are probably either trade for Cooper Kupp, re-sign Stephon Diggs, or trade for Deebo Samuel. And I think since you're trying to either replace Stephon Diggs at wide, if Stephon Diggs is not on the team next year at wide receiver 2, you're trying to replace him. And if Dell's not going to be back next season, you're going to have to add in another wide receiver to try to replace him at wide receiver 3. So I think at wide receiver 2, your options are, having either Deebo, Diggs back, or Cooper Kupp as your top options for the wide receiver 2 spot. And I think some potential wide receiver 3 options for the Texans to replace Dell next season, since he'll be out next season. You got Matthew Gold in the draft, Darius Slayton, a free agent, and here's 2, I think, very possible signings to the Texans, or both these guys are possible additions. I don't think both of them, but one of them is possible. To bring in one of them both of them are guys the Texans would be interested in, are former guys under Nick Caley's former team. DeMarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell for the Rams are both free agents this upcoming offseason, and those are both guys that Nick Caley was with in Los Angeles, the new offensive coordinator for the Texans, who is now the or was the pass game coordinator for Los Angeles. So those could be wide receiver 3 options for CJ Stroud and the Texans. I'd love to see DeMarcus Robinson on this team as the wide receiver 3. And honestly, would not mind seeing Texans sign DeMarcus Robinson and trade for Deebo Samuel, because then you have an elite number 1 in Nico Collins, who is a great deep guy, and then he's a great guy to throw in the deep game and really anything. You can really throw the ball anywhere with him. And then with Deebo, you have a great speedster and a guy who really can do anything as well. And then with DeMarcus Robinson, he's a guy that has a lot of speed as well and would bring a lot of value with speed. I think this team would have a lot of value in the speed game with their wide receivers, and they'd have a lot of speed. They'd have a lot of potential deep balls for CJ Stroud, and especially DeMarcus Robinson, as he's been a guy who's been a really good route runner in his career. So I think there are a lot of potential options for this Texans team at wide receiver, but Deebo Samuel was the latest one, and according to Jordan Schultz, that Deebo Samuel trade talks have started with the Texans and the 49ers, and the 49ers and the 49ers and the Commanders. Let me know your thoughts on the potential trade for the Texans in the comment section, and peace out. Go Texans.